Hello, everyone. We are ready to start our formal meeting. And as tradition in the past was, we would take turns throughout the different council members to chair a formal meeting. We haven't done it in a while because we've all been virtual and it was too difficult. So you get the pleasure of me today. So welcome to today's meeting, which is a combined local building authority, redevelopment agency, and city council meeting. We are happy to have you here joining us today virtually or in person. Thank you for your patience as we continue navigating the COVID situation and trying to make the best decisions to keep people safe. If you are here joining us on site, the council continues to take precautions to reduce the transmission of COVID-19 and maintain healthy work environments. For now, though, masks are no longer required in the city. In city facilities, we encourage everyone here to wear masks since COVID cases are rising, although we heard earlier that maybe not as much as we think. Anyway, if you are here to give public comment, feel free to remove your mask after your name has been called and you are at the microphone to address the council. Thank you for joining us. This time, we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I'm going to go over our meeting rules and decorum. I want to make a distinction for the public's understanding and to ensure that we have a clear record. As the city's elected officials, I would like to highlight council members don't just serve as the city council, but we also serve as the local building authority board and the redevelopment agency board. One moment. Think of it as the council wearing three different hats. We will begin with the business of the local building authority, and then we will change our hats and move on to one business item as the redevelopment agency board. And then finally, we'll change our hats again to conduct city council business items. Our business items tonight include holding public hearings regarding proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 budgets for each entity.
Volume up just a bit.
We will have a staff person with you shortly, but we'll do our best to speak as loudly as possible also. The volume's kind of maxed out in the room right now. So
I will do better at talking louder. I'm a very loud person, so that's not difficult for me to do. Our business items tonight include holding public hearings regarding proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 budgets for each entity. Even though this is the second opportunity for the public to comment on the budget, we will be accepting and considering comments until we adopt the budget on June 14th. As the local building authority, we are at LBA public hearing item B1 regarding a resolution for the budget for the capital projects fund of the local building authority for fiscal year 2022-2023. And again, I just want to reiterate, because this can get confusing and for anyone who is online. This public hearing right now is simply for this item as it pertains to the local building authority. If you are here to comment on the general fund for the city, that will be coming a little bit later in our program this evening. Okay? So, before we begin taking comments, I will first turn the time over to Jen Bruno, our staff policy analyst, to give a short introduction.
thank you, Madam Chair. The first public hearing about the budget will address the local building authority. It is the city's financing mechanism to build facilities such as the Glendale and Marmalade libraries. And this particular budget is the tool that the city uses to pay the debt service on those bonds each year. While the title references the capital projects account, this does not include any of the capital projects reviewed and recommended by the mayor to be funded by the general fund. That hearing will be later tonight, and that's it on the LBA.
Thank you, Jen. Taylor, is there Any comments on this item? Comment.
Council Chair, there are no comments for this item.
Great. In that case, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Is that you, Councilmember Bowie?
it is.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that the board close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date for action.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bowie, second by Councilmember Dugan. I will roll call this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Yes, we're board members right now. Board Member Wharton.
Yes.
Board Member Mono.
Yes.
Board Member Valdemoros. Yes. Board Member.
Yes.
Board Member Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Board Member Pui.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. That concludes our local building authority meeting. I will ask for a motion to adjourn as the local building authority and to convene as the redevelopment agency board.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Wharton. I have a second by Board Member Dugan. I will roll call. Board Member Dugan.
Yes.
Board Member Wharton.
Yes.
Board Member Mono.
Yes.
Board Member Valdemoros.
Yes.
Board Member Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Board Member Pui.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. At this time, we are now convened as the Redevelopment Agency Board. As the Redevelopment Agency Board, we are at the RDA public hearing item D1 regarding a budget for the Redevelopment Agency of Salt Lake City for fiscal year 2022-2023. Before we begin, I will again turn the time over to Jen Bruno for a short introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This hearing pertains to the budget of the Redevelopment Agency as proposed by the administration for fiscal year 2023. If there are comments about the proposed city budget, those comments should be in the item later tonight. This budget, in particular, was discussed in a work session on May 17th during the RDA board meeting, and recordings and a staff report for this item can be found on the council's budget website, which is tinyurl.com/SLCFY23. And that's it.
Thank you, Jen. Taylor, do we have any comments on this item?
There are no comments for this item.
Excellent. With that, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the board close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date of action for action.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Dugan, a second by Board Member Mono. Roll calling this. Board Member Dugan.
Yes.
Board Member Wharton.
Yes.
Board Member Mono.
Yes.
Board Member Valdemoros.
Yes.
Board Member Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Board Member Pui.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. And this concludes our Redevelopment Agency Board meeting. I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Wharton, a second by Board Member Dugan. Roll calling. Board Member Dugan.
Yes.
Board Member Wharton.
Yes.
Board Member Mono.
Yes.
Board Member Valdemoros. Yes. Board Member Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Board Member Pui.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. Whew. Okay. We are now convened as the body of the Salt Lake City Council. Our first item of council business is F1, to approve the work session meeting minutes of September 14th, 2021, as well as the formal meeting minutes of May 3rd, 2022. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council approves the work session meeting minutes of September 14th, 2021, as well as the formal meeting minutes of May 3rd, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Wharton. Roll calling this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros. Yes. Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. Now we will get to the public hearings of the City Council. And I will take a moment to explain some of the rules, decorum, and the process in case you are unfamiliar with it. Because we are in a hybrid situation and we have people here in person and online, we do things a little differently. Taylor on our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. We will call names of people joining on WebEx and in person based on the order of registration or received comment cards. If you are in person and you want to make a comment and you have not filled out a comment card, please just raise your hand and one of our staff members will get you a comment card that you can fill out. After you are done, as you see, our staffers, wonderful staff members, will pick up your comment card and we will get you in the queue to make your comment. Once we open public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and be prepared to speak. When it is your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name. For people in WebEx, she will unmute your line and you may begin. For people in person, please step up to the podium to make your comment into the microphone. Once you begin, please state your name and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, staff will announce time. If you are unable to finish your comment, please send the rest of your comment via email, mail, or call our office. Our contact information is posted in the meeting room or in the WebEx chat. If you do not wish to speak, please either message our staff or when staff states your name, please let us know that you are just here to listen. Again, I would ask that everyone who is commenting be on any of these public hearings, please be respectful. We want to create a space where everyone can give their opinion, and that means not trying to intimidate other listeners or us as elected officials. And if that does happen, we will ask you to stop your comment and or leave if necessary. However, I see this crowd and I can trust all of you guys, so I know you're all going to be on your best behavior. We also want to make sure in doing this, it is a way for us to truly listen to what you are saying and be able to be present as well without having to worry about any sort of intimidation or disrespect. I do also want to explain, because this has come up, that within public hearings and when we get to our general comment section, we as council don't interact. And you won't see us having much interaction up here. That we save and have already been through for the last several hours during our work session. That's where the discussion happens and where we're able to ask questions to departments and have debates amongst ourselves. This is simply for us to hear what you have to say in a very open forum, and we want to be able to do that. With all of that said, I once again will turn the time over to Jen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The City Council considers all budget ordinances in one public hearing, as they are all needed to implement the Mayor's proposed fiscal year 23 budget, including the library. The various ordinances address fees, compensation, adopting property tax rates and budgets, among other items. Tonight's public hearing addresses ordinances G1 through G10. For those that aren't aware, departments are discussed in detail at each of the council's work sessions, which start at 2 p.m. and have gone from mid-May to today. Recordings of those discussions are available online on the council's website, as are the staff reports for each department. More of this information can be found at tinyurl.com/SLCFY23.
Thanks, Jen. And with that, I will turn the time over to Taylor.
Thank you, Council Chair. It looks like there are 15 people here to speak. The first will be Sarah Woolsey, followed by N. Canada, and then Christopher Butler. Sarah, you're now unmuted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Okay, excellent. Sarah Woolsey. I live in Chair Fowler's District 7. I am a citizen who lives on Hollywood Avenue. We are located just a little bit south of the Sugar House Business District. We are asking, so this is, I'm representing my neighbors and fellow side street livers that are from 900 East to 1100 East, from 21st South to Garfield Avenue. We have a CIP project we would like to have funded called Safe Side Streets Part 2. This is a collaborative effort to look at calming streets for the residential neighborhoods adjacent to the very busy Sugar House District. It is a collaborative project to look at how can we safely quiet the streets without impacting our fellow street mates in a negative way. For example, if we were to make the street calmer on Hollywood and then it impacts the Ramona traffic, it doesn't benefit our neighbors. We are excited to have some baseline information from which we will work to do those interventions we think that will inform other parts of Salt Lake City in terms of safe side streets and calming. And we'd like to ask for Safe Side Streets Part 2 to get funded in order to learn, but also impact our neighborhood in a really positive way. We thank you for your attention and interest. We know you have lots of difficult decisions to make, and we ask for your consideration in the budget for Safe Side Streets Part 2. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sarah. And Taylor, before we move on, I do also want just a clarification a little bit. On our agenda today, during the work session, we did have a CIP overview. What this public hearing is right now is not in regard to CIP. That is a different decision that will be coming later after we do the budget. Happy to take CIP comments during the general comment period, which will again come up later, a little later in our program. The public hearing right now is on the ordinance as they relate to the city budget. And I know that that is confusing, especially if you were listening to our work session. But just know if you're here for CIP, there will be more opportunities in the future to have your comments heard. Taylor, you can take it away again.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from N Canada, followed by Christopher Butler, and then Jim Webster. And you are unmuted.
Hi, everyone. So you talked about one-time funding needing to be investigated, but you have not been critical of the 10 million going to golf courses. I'd rather that go towards subsidizing early childhood education, like you talked about earlier today, offset tax increases, enriching more constituents than the small number of golfers, or helping the homeless members of our community. If the 6 Salt Lake City golf courses are not profitable, we should let a few close and have them turned into indigenous wildlife preserves. This will also minimize water usage. And second part of my comment is additionally, why are we not being more data-driven with the efficacy of policing, which has been shown to not be high, and tighten their budget? The other day I saw 5 to 6 cop cars responding to a homeless individual. I would also like to separate social workers and alternative nonviolent responses from the police department to a new department of peace. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, another clarification. While CIP is part of the budget, and again, we can have those comments now, there will be further opportunity in July and August to also comment on CIP. Once again, Taylor, I'm going to stop interrupting you, I hope.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Christopher Butler, followed by Jim Webster, and then William Boren. Christopher, you're now unmuted.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm here to talk about the outrageous police budget. One, I agree with the previous person that we should separate our social workers and those non-officers out of the police department because they aren't cops and it could be better for them to be in a different thing. But in light of recent events in the US, we might be people may want to throw even more money at the police, but it's clearly not the answer. In Texas, Uvalde also gave around a fourth of their city budget. They prevent the things that happen there, and that's what Salt Lake to do, is give around a fourth of the general budget to the police, which is just wild. In a 2019 Journal of Adolescent Health looked at 179 school shootings on school grounds and found no evidence that having police officers that prevent or deter these things. In fact, having police on school grounds is found to make shootings more severe. So the data supports that police aren't going to be stopping mass shootings, and often also school unhelpful, leading to arrest 17 years. Using budget as a whole, that we should not fund school resource officers. We should take them out of schools, take us class, and don't, as well as get rid of the Promising Youth Program that was a grant, a one-time grant that then the cops hope that we're going to fund, and we just shouldn't be funding these grants that they have no way to fund after the initial. I'm out of time, so thank you.
Thank you. And you cut out a little bit here and there, so if you want to also email us your comment, that would probably be helpful so we get all of your thoughts.
Okay, and next we will hear from Jim Webster, followed by William Boren, and then George Chapman. Jim is in person to speak.
If
Right, sir.
yes, sorry.
Yes, my name is Jim Webster. I'm the Vice Chair of Hillcrest Neighborhood Council. Pull up my thing here. I would like to mention that during the Wilson administration, I was on a mayor's advisory committee for the budget. It was a very effective way for non-biased citizenry to participate in the budget process. That has been lost. It seems to be internal now, and our only opportunity is this budget public hearing, which I appreciate. I'd like to point out that one of the things that I've been involved in is the Steiner Aquatic Center. That was funded privately, was not funded by the city, and it's about 35 years old. The city has not made any effort whatsoever to build out the master plan, and has balked at every turn when it comes to maintenance. The city does own the building, but it's managed by the county. I think that's unfortunate. Salt Lake City delegates a lot of responsibilities that are typically part of the city administration to Salt Lake County, namely animal control. We have a really good-sized problem, as Dan would recognize, certainly in Miller Bird Refuge, with off-leash dogs. For us to contact an agency that's clear down in Sandy or wherever they are, obviously the response time is not going to work, and so we're getting absolutely no timely benefit from this deferred or absentee agency. The fourth thing is the only road repair that I'm familiar with on the East Bench is a small section of LeGrand Street by Sunnyside. It's probably about 120 feet long. And yet, the East Side taxpayers funded certainly a lion's share of the bond for road repair. My car was broken into just the other day. Time?
Sorry, sir, that is your time. If you want to leave the rest of your comments with staff, we're happy to look at that. Thank you.
So, council, or Hillcrest chairs don't get any extra time? That
No,
used to be
sir.
a problem.
Everybody gets 2 minutes, and I know it's not a ton of time, but we're happy to take your comments in another form.
Well, this is a worthless exercise. Thank you.
Next, Taylor.
Next, we will hear from William Boren, followed by George Chapman, and then Margaret Holloway. William is in person to speak.
William? Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. That's you.
Some comments on the budget. The mayor's office, in the last from 2021 to 2023 proposal, is an increase of 72.23%. The city council, in the same period, 21 to 23, an increase of 19.38%. The police, increase of 32 67/100%. The attorney's office, 33 over 33% increase. The fire department, 20.8% increase. Human resources, 62% increase. $1 million to pay for the NBA All-Star game. $1 million to upgrade and clean up the shooting range, with half of that, $500,000, coming from the public utility budget. Why? Human resources. It seems like we can't provide all things for everyone, and it seems to me that we are losing the idea that we're being taxed and feed unto death. Aren't there any voices for cutting programs and personnel budgets? It's on and on.
Thank you.
And next we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Margaret Holloway, and then Carlton Christensen. George, you're now unmuted.
Okay. First of all, I think that not asking or allowing comment on the real draft budget, which you won't have until tomorrow at the earliest, is disrespectful. But most importantly, this city has the biggest increase in revenue available for funding ever. Yet you still want an unneeded property tax increase, which is like shaking down everyone, not just pillows. You want a bond for parks, but ARPA will fund them, but don't tell me you need to spend more money. You asked citizens to decrease watering. We did incredibly well, but we're going to get a reward of a big 15% fee increase. Why even try to save water? Do you see what's happening here? You're spending too much money. You don't need to do that. IT should be saving money, not increasing spending. Good IT management should decrease costs. Increasing fees for pavilions this summer, but decreasing the fees after the summer? Well, that's a real slap in the face. Come on. Urban forestry should not be increasing spending till they stop killing most of the trees they plant. And I'm against the library recruiting outside for a director. It's disrespectful and sexist to the many great library managers committed to Salt Lake City that are women. Anyone naming their cat Franklin is not sexist, but sexism is systemic, and I'd appreciate a review by this council of the library board actions. And please need more funding since we appear to be down over 150. Even Matrix recommends more officers with non-sworn officer response. And CIP for traffic calming is very appropriate now since the budget is planning on a RDA for 21st South, which will impact Sarah Wolsey's area. And solar panel fee reductions did not need a redoing of all fees for cost. You did it a few years ago. And
Next, we will hear from Margaret Holloway, followed by Carlton Christensen, and then Jen Colby. Margaret is in person to speak.
Yeah, I am. It's been a few years, hasn't it? Mine is on the trees and the landscaping that the city, I would like to see if they can revisit the budget on that and change how they're going to do the landscaping. If you drive down the mediums on the roads, they're full of weeds. And I understand maintenance. Why put them there when they're going to be full of weeds and it looks trashy? If they can cement them over, put artwork there that could maybe be changed out every couple of years, it would look so much nicer. It would look cleaner. You wouldn't have to worry about the water. The trees that were planted along 1200 West, they planted 8. There are 2 left, and I don't think those 2 are going to make it. There's not enough water in the city, in the parks. The ones in Rosewood are dying, okay? They were just planted there 2 years ago. Mayor, I understand You want 1,000 a year. But if there's no water, what is the sense of spending the money, the time and the effort to plant them if they're just going to die? You need to have the water. And we're all told to cut back, which we've all been doing. But if you would just pave over, if you drive any of the roadways with the mediums where they've got weeds and weeds and weeds and rocks. So if they can relook at the budget instead of spending on more of the same kind of sticks that you put in the ground that aren't going to make it between the cars, because a stick is not a tree. A tree grows. And that's what we see now. And it's going to cost money to redo it. But I think cement, you can go down, I think it's 3rd East, 3rd South, and it's cement with beautiful pieces of artwork that shine in the city. There's no water, there's no maintenance. Well, there might be some maintenance, but it's not going to be near as labor intensive as the other. That's for this part, and my comments in full form are online. But anyways, had to come. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Carlton Christensen, followed by Jen Colby, and then Ralph Becker. Carlton, you are now unmuted.
Yes, thank you. And our thanks to the council for taking and allowing us a couple minutes to make some comments. Mike, I'm a resident of District 1 and have been serving for the last couple of years on a nonprofit board called Friends of the Salt Lake City Cemetery, and wanted to thank the mayor for her proposal to potentially include some needed road work and infrastructure work within the cemetery in a proposed bond. I also want to thank the council for having adopted a master plan. In the 16 years I served on the council, it was something that I had always hoped would take place, and setting a roadmap about how we could restore and put back into a much better state needed public infrastructure. And it's a cultural heritage as well, and as well as arboretum and providing lots of natural green space. And so I think as we work together, both as a nonprofit working with the community and certainly the city in trying to improve that great facility, we know that this is going to be an important first step in getting to that end goal, and wanted to thank you and ask for your consideration.
And next we will hear from Jen Colby, followed by Ralph Becker, and then Ann. Jen, you are now unmuted.
Great. Jen Colby, resident of District 4. I have a few comments about the budget and the fee structure. First, I think the Good Landlord Program discount is utterly unjustified. I can't imagine why $20 versus $342 can possibly be legitimate, and I would ask the council also fund a program evaluation to see if the Good Landlord Program is actually functioning as designed. I would think that there should be a distinguishment between small landlords, maybe 20 units and smaller, and our big real estate investment trusts. I also am strongly objecting to the yet another bailout of the Golf Enterprise Fund. This is not about golf as a sport. This is about holding an enterprise fund fiscally responsible. I feel like I'm caught somehow between like Caddyshack and what was the other Bill Murray movie that had to do with golf? That one, with the groundhogs. That was Caddyshack and Groundhog Day. Anyway, it has been 10 years now, basically, that you are bailing out the golf fund. Either put the golf fund under parks and just get rid of the charade, or make them either raise fees or drop annual expenses to balance the budget. This is, we're not getting this. The rest of us who are funding this aren't getting this, and golf monopolizes an enormous amount of land for a single use. Nobody's died of not knowing how to play golf, but plenty of people have died not being able to swim, and it's much more justified to subsidize swimming. I'd also say that we really need to put that $2 million could really help West Side kids instead of putting them out there as somehow tokens in front of subsidizing mostly wealthy white golfers. We really need more money into safe and complete streets. Thank you for passing 20 is plenty, but a mere $3 million for complete streets is ridiculous, and funding our future is failing our future. I'm out of time, so I will send in more comments, but thank you, and the budget really needs revised. Also, yes, Department of Peace, please. Thanks.
Next, we will hear from Ralph Becker, followed by Ann Hannibal, and then Casey O'Connor. Ralph is in person to speak.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Good to see each of you. And I realize when I'm looking at you that the entire City Council has left out is new relative to the time when I was in office. I'm here, I realize you're not dealing with the CIP in terms of the specific projects, but I also know that you'll be allocating money for the CIP, as I understand it, as part of your budget deliberations at this time. So I'm going to be talking about a park that was not recommended by the CIP Advisory Board. There were dozens of proposals, and this one was just below on the list that they recommended. But we have identified, I thank Councilmember Valdemeros and her staff for helping identify funding for a park in a part of the city where there are no parks. The northwest part of downtown where I live is just exploding with population, as all of you know. It is also a part of the city where there are no parks. Within 8 or 10 blocks, Pioneer Park is the closest, which is several blocks to the south and east. A number of us have been working on a proposal for a proposal we're calling the Gateway Triangle Park on city property just south of the Grants Tower turn on the railroad. A few years ago, we were able to get a community garden put in on the very north part of that parcel, and we're looking to see that be included. We've identified a couple of funding sources where there is money available, the Parks Impact Fee in particular. We've identified uses for the park. There's been a tentative budget put together by city staff, which we really appreciate, and we hope you will allocate sufficient money that can be considered when you take up the CIP budget. Thank you.
And next we will hear from Ann Hannibal, followed by Casey O'Connor, and then Cindy Cromer. Ann is in person to speak.
Hello, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak for a few moments. I'm also from the Friends of the Salt Lake City Cemetery. This is a nonprofit organization that's fairly new. We're organized to advocate for the cemetery, provide and support public engagement, and also identify exterior non-public sources of funding. We believe there is a good potential for those funding sources, and particularly if, as the mayor has designated, some of the critical primary needs of the cemetery, which are the roads and the irrigation, can be addressed as Mayor Mendenhall has proposed. I would just like to say that while we're guided by the excellent 2017 master plan, I have been struck by what the role this cemetery plays in our city. It's sacred space, it's filled with family burials, incredible historic value, ecclesiastical leaders, civic leaders, criminals, veterans, artists, poets are buried there. Precious open space, 121 acres. It's actually the largest single open space in the city's open space network. It's been designated as an arboretum. That's a high standard in recognition and support of its incredible mature trees, some of which are gone. And particularly also, it's a wildlife refuge, avian refuge. People use it for contemplation, jogging. It's a part of the trail system. It's just a treasure of the city. So I'm just here to endorse that budget item. And thank you so much.
Next, we will hear from Casey O'Connor, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then Dave Ildis. Casey, you are now unmuted.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've known people that have been involved with city government, county government, whatnot. And one of them, I'll never forget the story. He said when he started, he went in and he proposed his budget, and he was all proud because he cut spending by like 10%, and everybody went apoplectic, and they said that's not the way to do it. And it reminds me of the old federal government funding called baseline budgeting. You always increase budgeting percentage. You always. Nobody ever takes a cut. Not one department takes a cut unless there's something traumatic happen or whatever. And I see this thing is called the Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Mission Statement. But it's like they've got 7 people on here. You have Chief Equity Officer, Equity Manager, Equity Coordinator for Special Projects, Policy Advisor for Refugees and New Americans, ADA Coordinator, Language Access Coordinator, Equity Liaison. Are you telling me that Salt Lake is in that pitiful a shape that you've got 7 people on a payroll that are doing just equity stuff, equity and inclusion? I mean, Paul, get a grip, get in touch with reality. It's like a never-ending money. You just raise taxes, raise taxes, raise taxes. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Cindy Cromer, followed by Dave Ildis, and then MJ Powell. Cindy is in person to speak.
My name is still Cindy Cromer, and it's interesting that the combination of a mask and my glasses limits me to less than 2 minutes because I can't use both. I'm campaigning tonight to protect the character of Salt Lake's older neighborhoods identified as city registered districts. Buried in the budget is a request for funds to update the surveys for the city registered districts. This request might appear to be a possible place to trim, but is essential for both homeowners and developers. Many of our mid-century buildings were not eligible for contributory status at the time of the last survey. Now they will be. And that status creates potential tax credits for the owners, whether the buildings are residential or commercial. I have seen very depressing outcomes when there was ambiguity about the status of a building. Developers need to know at the outset what the city's expectations are. Homeowners need to know so that they can avoid making changes which would compromise the status of their house, as well as their own eligibility for the tax credits. The Planning Division has just launched an impressive program to notify property owners. But knowing that your property is in a district doesn't tell you the contribution that your building makes to the district. It takes an expert to do that. Please fund the updated research for the city's registered districts. It's in everyone's interest to have accurate information. And a huge thank you to several of your staff members who helped me locate the information in the budget document. I would not have found it without them.
Next, we will hear from Dave Ildis, followed by MJ Powell.
Oh, my bad, Dave. Yes, pardon me.
Hi, my name's Dave Ildis. I'm with Cycling Utah. And I wanted to comment on the transportation budget. There's various aspects of that. I'm hoping you would increase the budget for transportation planning as too many things keep falling through the cracks because the Division of Transportation Planning does not have enough personnel, resources, time to make sure that projects are done in the best way possible. And with the recent deaths of pedestrians and bicyclists on our streets, this is just not acceptable. A South, for example, was just repaved west of State Street. Great opportunity to make three or four blocks of that much safer. Absolutely nothing was done. And this is in part because of the lack of coordination between transportation, engineering, and streets, which all three of those need to be combined into one transportation department and not this ridiculous system that we have where the three often have infighting and don't do the right thing. In terms of the funding our future sales tax, I would ask that you please stipulate that the city has to follow their own law. They broke that egregiously on First South, and where First South, the reconstruction of First South is blatantly illegal, how they did that without installing bike lanes and also by putting in a road diet that didn't belong, or by not putting in a road diet. RDA on State Street, transportation, the plan for that is terrible in terms of the, so I don't know if this is the RDA budget or not. And then lastly, the traffic signs and markings, you have $158,000 on that. Yet we just instituted 20 is plenty. And in order to change over signs and markings this year, not 10 years from now, please double or triple that budget and get it done so that we don't have any more pedestrian deaths. Thank you.
Next is MJ Powell, who is in person.
First off, I would like to speak on a new nonprofit initiative, or a new initiative, My Brother's Keeper, Salt Lake City. It's going to be under Youth and Family Services. This initiative was brought forward by former Commissioner Ephraim Coombe and myself in response to the death of George Floyd, and locally here, Bernardo Palacios. Rest both their souls. The importance of this program became clear while serving as a commissioner and understanding that we need a proactive community-based approach to incentivizing young men of color to become civically engaged, removing obstacles to secondary education and post-employment, and making sure that our current youth are taken care of. So I would like to say thank you to Mayor Mendenhall for supporting My Brother's Keeper and putting this in her budget. I would propose a further examination of its current budget and its need to go on for maybe 5 to 6 years. There's other models of this program being successful around the country, and I'd be happy to meet with other people beyond this. I'd like to move now to, and I'd also like to publicly thank Coach Snyder of the Utah Jazz for donating $40,000 from his nonprofit foundation. These donations aren't unrecognized, and from someone who is marching in the community, it's nice to see these things funded from community partners, but we can see that from the city and state in due time as well. My next comments are about the budget proposal for the $21 million increase to SLCPD. I'd like to see established legislative intent for examining effectiveness of current and recent budget proposals, including implicit bias surveys, history of policing on marginalized communities, curriculum, more field training officers of color, and incentivizing and recruiting more local officers. We want to see officers come over from other jurisdictions, but community policing requires that we go directly to our communities if it's door to door, and we educate people on community policing and ask them what they want to see here. Thank you, and I do support the $21 million increase because our officers deserve a livable wage. Thank you for your time today.
Council Chair, that was the final comment for this item.
Excellent. Thank you to everyone who commented today. With that, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, before I make a motion, I just want to take a moment of personal privilege and thank everyone that came today. I wrote down the list of everything, and it runs the whole gamut of things that we do in the city. So thank you so much for being engaged, for coming tonight, and for being involved in the civic process. And with that, I will make a motion that we close the public hearing and defer action to a future meeting.
Second.
Who seconded? You? Okay. I have a motion by Councilmember Mano and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Roll calling this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. We are now at the potential action portion of our agenda. Item H1 is regarding an ordinance, the zoning map amendment at Western Gardens, 550 South, 600 East. I will look for a motion.
Looking for it. Madam Chair, I will make a motion that the council adopt the updated ordinance as drafted.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mano, a second by Councilmember Dugan. Roll call. Oh, was that you, Pui?
Yes.
Sorry. I have a second by Councilmember Pui. Roll calling this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros. Yes. Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
I am a yes. That passes unanimously.
Madam Chair, sorry.
Sir.
I'm
just kidding.
I have another moment of personal privilege. I just wanted to say we had just a couple things to clarify on this one. First of all, Brian from our staff worked really, really hard to make sure that we were able to incorporate as much of the resident feedback as possible into this. And so what we just adopted includes a development agreement to require some parking, including a half a space per 1 bedroom and 1 space for 2 bedroom or more units, and requiring a 25 minimum setback from the western property of this, which abuts existing single family residential properties. So this goes to something that I have felt for a really long time, which is we don't really have the correct zone that's the middle ground between the form-based zone that we just adopted with this development agreement and some of our current multifamily zones. So the best we can do until we are able to adopt those is to adopt with development agreements, which are hopefully as site-specific as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. We are now on to our comment section of the... Nope. Backseat chairing over there. We are on to the comment section, which we start with questions for the mayor. Madam Mayor, thank you as always for joining us at our council meetings. Any questions for Madam Mayor from council members? I don't see any. Thank you again. I think we've had lots of discussions during the budget to work session meetings. So with that, we are going to the comments to the city council. I legitimately just gave all of the rules, so I trust that everybody remembers them. If not, I will correct you if you do something wrong. But I think everyone's done so good thus far. At our general comment section, this comment section is for you to tell us whatever you would like to tell us. We do ask that if it has already been on the agenda, i.e. the ordinances regarding the budget, that you not go back to that. We have had that public hearing. That public hearing is now closed. This is for anything else that you would like to tell us, council members. With that, it is the same process. Taylor will be in charge of calling names. She'll call 3 names at a time to prepare the future speakers. Taylor, take her away.
Thank you, Council Chair. It looks like there are 5 people here for general comment. The first will be Sylvain Nue, followed by N. Canada, and then George Chapman. Sylvain is in person to speak.
Aloha, everybody. Hey, my name is Nui. I am from Glendale. I live in Glendale for almost 30 years now. And I wanted to address I'm a small business, electrical contractor out of Glendale. I was wondering if is there any program for us as small business in Glendale to develop all these new budget development and everything that we as a small business in Glendale could be part of it. This program is run in Denver, Seattle, Oregon, and California for these small businesses. Like I said, are we qualified as poor people out of Glendale? Yes, we are. I am the general contractor electrical that did the airport. Now that I quit and started my own company, I wanted to hire local kids in my neighborhood. Besides shooting each other, they become employed under me. And I wanted to see all these, infrastructure bill coming out and all these that comes out. We wanted to just be part of it on my little community, which I live in. And like I said, the richer get richer. They say that, big companies get all the bonds and get it, and we don't even have a share of it. The money should stay in my little community, which is Glendale. And that's all we're asking. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking to just be a part of this infrastructure coming out. there's a lot of good kids in my neighborhood, which I am living there for many years. And I wanted to see if the mayor does it or whatever for the city councils. If the other cities can do it, we could do it. And I'm reaching out from my Glendale area. And mahalo, everybody.
Next, we will hear from N Canada, followed by George Chapman, and then Casey O'Connor. And you are now unmuted.
Hi, everyone. So I just want to say I'm in District 2. About to say that my pronouns are they, them. I have a few points. I would like to see the city council explore rent control. I can afford the rent increases. I make over 100K, but the average Utah resident household makes less, and rents are not locally sustainable. So I'd like to see people work on that. Also, more benches in the city. I was walking around and I was like, I need to sit. And I couldn't find anywhere to sit. I'd also like the city to deprioritize European foliage that is not indigenous to this area of the U.S. And plant indigenous foliage instead. That would solve a lot of the weed issue and kind of like, people saying, oh, the trees are dying. Yeah, because they're not supposed to be here, right? And they're not indigenous. So last point is I would like to see more protected bike lanes. I'm at this point not comfortable biking because I'm afraid I'm getting hit by a car. So I'd like to see more bike lanes protected specifically so I can feel more comfortable and start biking and help be part of a more sustainable city. Thanks, guys, and have a good afternoon.
Next, we will hear from George Chapman, and then MJ Powell, followed by David Hildis. George, you're now unmuted.
Okay. Airbnb needs special new fees since the nuisance ordinance doesn't seem to work, and we even have complaints of human trafficking associated with them. And the good landlord program should not be used or allowed for Airbnb, but it appears to be used, and that's wrong. The city should increase penalties for short-term rentals and stop letting them try to convert to motels. I mean, they're actually trying to convert to motels. The city never should have allowed that. Other cities have solutions to address the negative impact of them, but why doesn't Salt Lake City? And another issue, responding with fire department engines to mental health issues will make those issues worse due to the noise. More medical SUVs would be more appropriate for mental and medical response. And social workers don't want to go out without sworn officers or firefighters. And free fare will not work and didn't work due to using the free fares on the coldest months, which makes the system a mobile homeless shelter. Even as a long-term transit proponent, now I don't feel comfortable riding buses with it being a homeless shelter. That's wrong. And Jim Webster is right, road repair and basic maintenance needs to be stepped up. Since citizens are not seeing what was promised, urban forestry needs an audit and review. Since they are planting trees where they obviously don't get watered, like corner lots with 6-foot fences. And what happened to the Symphony and Sugar House Park? And finally, Dave Iltis is right about 8 South. Thanks for listening.
Next, we will hear from MJ Powell, followed by Dave Ildis. MJ is in person.
Separate from my budget proposal comments, but a comment in the same. Gun violence has targeted our communities for far too long. We also know that gun violence disproportionately affects communities of color. It was reassuring to see the city council's members there with the mayor at the Peace Gardens recently to announce a gun buyback program. Obviously, the monetary or the money provided by the foundation is, we're grateful for that, and it's nice to have a way to dispose of firearms, but in order to efficiently and cost efficiently incentivize people turning in their firearms, there needs to be a deeper consideration, more than $50 for a handgun and more than $100 for an assault rifle. it almost would turn off the people that have these arms from wanting to do it. In the same breath, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working with city and state leaders on common sense gun legislation, such as raising the minimum age to buy firearms to 21. I understand, as the son of a veteran, the younger brother of an active service member, that if you can serve this country, you also deserve to have a firearm. Well, things such as nicotine and other things such as alcohol are prohibited, so firearms should be in the same. Rest in peace to Aaron Lowe and many other people who've been targeted and killed by senseless acts of gun violence by criminals who may commit these acts regardless of legislation. I hope the approach will continue not to be over-policing of communities of color and instead follow the mayor's pursuit by a no questions asked policy, and can we work from there as a city to get guns off our streets? Thank you.
Next is Dave Ildis, who is also in person.
Hi, this is Dave Eltis again. I wanted to make a comment regarding processes in Salt Lake City. So you've heard me for probably a year and a half talk about the disaster of what Salt Lake City Transportation did on 100 South by not following the law and by violating principles of the Federal Highway Administration and just basically making a car-friendly street and a bike-unfriendly street. 10 days ago or so, I filed a complaint with the city attorney's office regarding this, a detailed 8-page complaint that goes point by point with every single thing that the Transportation Division and the Complete Streets Committee stated as for their reasons to not put in bike lanes on 100 South, despite the fact that it was paid for by the Funding Our Future bond, and despite the fact that we have a Complete Streets ordinance. Salt Lake City has no check and balance system whatsoever. I asked the council about this previously, and nothing happened with that. So what happens when the administration does not follow the law? As a citizen, for myself to, or someone else to have to file a lawsuit is just out of bounds in terms of the difficulty and cost of that. And the city attorney's office told me that I could file something with them, but yet 10 days later, I have not even a written response that we received your complaint. Salt Lake City, as far as I know, has no ombudsman to address issues like this. And so at the very least, we need some sort of process to do that, and so that when the administration doesn't follow the law, that there's a place for citizens to go and address this, because you do not have this, and the council is not acting as a check and balance either. So please figure this out. Thank you.
And that was our final comment this evening.
Yes. Okay, we will have you join us. You can step up. Yep.
First off, I want to thank you very much for following through on the international market. That was a hard battle 4 years ago, and by golly, I got the community to speak up, and James did an awesome job, and I want to thank you for opening it up. The budget proposal in 2015 for a $100 million bond to redo Glendale was never put on the ballot because it was a lot of promises, but they did a fantastic job of saying this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be, but if we got down to the nitty-gritty, they said only if money becomes available. So if you're going to pass a $400 million bond this time, I'm just asking, please be honest with the people. Don't present this huge big thing and you're never going to do it, because it just takes it away, and there's no maintenance in this. I asked Victoria, and she said, no, it'll come out of general fund. So whatever you build, whatever you make, Glendale deserves a fantastic park. but on a timely manner. It's the maintenance issue. The city is absolutely awesome at building things. Maintaining them is a total different thing, because then you have to have more money to keep for maintenance costs. So if you could just please be honest with people on what can be built at the time. In 2015, they wanted to take a half a levee down off Par 3 to build Nature in the City, which they couldn't have done anyways, but they said that that's what they wanted $25 million to do. And the federal government never would have let them do it. So why tell anybody about that? So I'm just, the people will pass this bond. They always pass it for parks, but just please, when you guys decide what you're going to build, just make sure there's money to maintain it, because otherwise it just goes like the golf courses. Just builds and builds and builds. But anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Was there anybody else in the room that wanted to make a comment and we might have had you slip through the cracks? Okay, with that, we will be moving on. Thank you for everyone who made a comment today. We're on to agenda item J. There is no new business. This brings us to our unfinished business, item K1, which is an ordinance for public lands 20-year master plan Reimagine Nature. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance approving the Salt Lake City Reimagine Nature Master Plan, subject to a revision in the master plan that reference to a partnership with a friends group or 501c3 to support or maintain the city's parks and open space will include a requirement that the friends group is separate from the city, not managed by city employees, and has a contractual transparent relationship with the city to support and maintain the city's parks open space that includes city processes for any budgeting, receiving of funding, and contracting for the management of or maintenance of these city assets.
Did everyone get that motion?
Yeah.
I'll look for a second.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Peter Eschler. Roll call. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
I'm sorry, hold on.
Oh.
I'm the worst.
Is there discussion on this? I guess I should have asked.
Yeah, there's also in the motion sheet the discussion about open spaces in the islands and medians, but I didn't hear Councilmember Dugan read that. Did you intentionally leave that out, Councilmember Dugan?
No, I didn't see it either.
It's just a note here that it is already included, I think.
Okay, so that doesn't need to be read into the motion?
I think so, right.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Then I'm a yes.
Right, yeah.
To read aloud, yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that. I'm a yes.
However, it's already a part of it.
Yes.
Right.
I'm looking at all the attorneys and city recorders. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Sorry.
That's covered.
It's covered. With that,
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes, with that.
Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Oh, yes.
I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. We are on to our last unfinished business, item K2, and it is regarding an ordinance for economic development revolving loan fund to Buddies, Inc., 1150 East, 600 South. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance approving $150,000 loan for Buddies, Inc. from the Economic Development Loan Fund.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mano, a second. Nope, other way around. I have a motion by Councilmember Petro Eschler and a second by Councilmember Mano. Is there any discussion on this, Councilmember Mano? I will go ahead and
That Liberty Park.
I will go ahead and roll call. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Member Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
And I am a yes, that passes unanimously. We are on our last section, Section L, the consent portion of our agenda. I will look for a motion for this. We are pulling item number 3. So it is consent to all of the items except item number 3. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda except item number 3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Wharton. I will roll call. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
I am a yes. That passes unanimously. And this concludes our formal city council meeting. We now stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.